And hello, this is Luminous Star. Welcome to my channel, Luminous Star. For you guys and gals who are visiting for the first time, welcome. And why don't you join the Star family by hitting that subscription button below? We're going to give you a big old virtual hug once you do so. Okay, we would love to have you join the Star family. So again, welcome to Luminous Star. Today's video is about discontinue giving place spiritually, emotionally, and psychologically to the narcissist. Now, of course, I cannot forget my stars. Welcome to Luminous Star, and wherever my stars are today or tonight, I wish you the very best. And on that note, mwah, thank you so much for your subscription. Thank you for sharing your stories and inspiring me, not only by your stories, but you motivate me to keep this channel active. So I really appreciate you for that. Again, my stars, mwah, welcome to Luminous Star. Welcome to today's video, and wherever you may be, I wish you the very best. Everyone who's watching, I want to thank you in advance for your time. All right, I'm going to be going over a few points, a few tools, and also check the description box below for further details to today's video. Also, if you wouldn't mind, please like and share the video. First point, the cluster B personality and narcissist must have your undivided attention. If he or she does not think or feel that you are supplying him or her to standards, then there will be attempts to get you to do so by any means necessary. Next point, tactics anywhere from emotional manipulation to cyber stalking may be used in order to obtain a sense of control and obtain source supply, even though the physical aspect of the unhealthy relationship is over. Any type of attention, whether negative or positive, will be sufficient to the cluster B personality or those with a narcissistic personality disorder. Next point, it is challenging enough to end an unhealthy relationship with a cluster B personality or narcissist. However, after going no contact, one may begin to experience various challenges spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and possibly even mentally. These experiences are natural due to their prior circumstances. However, these experiences can influence emotions that may make thriving forward seem impossible. Pause. All right to the first point. The cluster B personality and the narcissist, yes, at the end of the day, they want that source supply by any means necessary, which means they will do anything to keep the false self-image relevant. Next point, tactics anywhere from emotional manipulation to cyber stalking may be used. Okay, so a lot of us, unfortunately, have had the experience of some of these tactics that the cluster B personality or the narcissist will use in order to obtain a sense of control and obtain source supply and keep the false self-image relevant. Cyber stalking is not excluded. Some of us have horror stories about the cyber stalking. Okay, so this is pretty much, this point here is self-explanatory. So for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Okay, this last point. Absolutely, it is challenging enough to end an unhealthy relationship, even if it's not a cluster B personality or a narcissist. It is not your typical unhealthy relationship. It really isn't, and I'll get further into that in the video. But the challenges are going to be spiritual, emotional, as well as psychological. Hands down, those challenges will occur after ending the unhealthy relationship. So it may seem like thriving forward will be impossible, but I want to go ahead and challenge all of you to continue to thrive forward. Next point, the unhealthy relationship with the cluster B personality and those who may have a narcissistic personality disorder is not within a category in which one can say is a typical unhealthy relationship. According to research, the effects of investing emotionally in an unhealthy relationship with those who have a narcissistic personality disorder or a cluster B personality can be lifelong or long-term. It is not uncommon for those who have been involved with a cluster B personality or those with a narcissistic personality, either romantically, socially, or by family ties, to spend years recovering from such a life-altering experience. Pause. Okay, now that was a lot right there. Okay, so we have to, well, I'm going to go ahead and pause and really talk about this point. This is a highlightable point here in the entire video. That is my opinion. But as we go further into the video, some of you may disagree, and that's okay. Now, an unhealthy relationship with a cluster B personality and an unhealthy relationship with someone who doesn't have a cluster B personality or a narcissistic personality is quite different. There's differences. Not that the relationship is unhealthy, that's similar, but the tone and the theme of the unhealthy relationship with the cluster B personality or the narcissist is quite different. Okay, this is what some people don't quite understand, especially when they haven't experienced an unhealthy relationship with the cluster B personality or narcissist. So I think it's pretty fair to say that this is not your typical unhealthy relationship. There's a lot of information out there. So according to research, the effects of investing emotionally in an unhealthy relationship with the cluster B personality or a person who has a narcissistic personality disorder, right, it is quite different. There's not a lot of similarities. It really isn't. There's some, but there's a lot of differences as well, such as some of the tactics that the cluster B personality or the narcissist will use in order to gain source supply. So whether this is a person that you were romantically involved with or socially involved with or by family tie, a lot of people usually spend years recovering. They spend some time recovering from such a life-altering experience. And it is a life-altering experience, or it seems that way, because of all the things that a person has gone through, such as the gaslighting techniques that the cluster B personality or the narcissist uses as a tactic for source supply or to have a sense of control in the relationship, which is very toxic and unhealthy. So I don't want to confuse everyone by saying too much here. Well, what I will say is that it is not your typical unhealthy relationship. It really isn't. Once you add the cluster B personality or the narcissistic personality, it is quite different. Okay, so the unhealthy relationship is not a typical unhealthy relationship. Next point. In order to begin healing and thriving forward past unhealthy relationships, one must first face that he or she possibly has been traumatized by the experience. As long as the unhealthy relationship remains active, this, of course, will become more challenging to do. Pause. So the longer a person chooses to invest emotionally in the unhealthy relationship with the cluster B personality or the narcissist, then yes, it's going to be quite difficult. It's going to be very challenging for this person to thrive forward, to heal, and to recover from such an experience, which is quite traumatic most of the time. So in order for a person to continue to thrive forward, if they haven't done so already, if they haven't at least put the steps or started taking the steps, right, to thrive forward, in order to begin healing, my opinion is the person, whomever he or she is, they have to first face the fact that possibly they were traumatized by being in an unhealthy relationship with the cluster B personality. The longer the relationship is with the cluster B personality and a narcissist, there's just more layers of trauma to sort through. Choosing to continue investing in an unhealthy relationship takes its toll eventually as time goes on. For the duration of the relationship with the narcissist or those with the cluster B personality, one is challenged emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually to endure tactics which are designed to influence emotions of sadness, anger, and possibly states of anxiety and depression. By choosing to emotionally invest in such a relationship, one is giving place to the narcissist and the cluster B personality. in which trauma bonding becomes a possibility. Pause. So yes, I want to challenge everyone to look up or research trauma bonding. This is another common issue, especially when we're talking about a cluster B personality or a narcissist who is a part of a dysfunctional family. Okay, especially if they are responsible for children in the dysfunctional family. Okay, this can be grandparents, this can be aunts and uncles, this can be older cousins. Okay, it's not just pertaining to the parents. I know a lot of times we go right for the parents, okay, but this can be any so-called adult who is responsible for children in a dysfunctional relationship or a dysfunctional family. Okay, so choosing to continue to invest in an unhealthy relationships, yes, it can take its toll. But the longer the person is invested emotionally in such a relationship, yes, they risk suffering or enduring challenges that are psychological, spiritual, and emotional. All right, so this can go right on into the person experiencing states of depression and anxiety. But a person who is involved with a cluster B personality and or narcissist, yes, there are going to be a lot of challenges that he or she will experience and face psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, and possibly mentally as well. There can be cognitive impairments as a result of the unhealthy relationship with the cluster B personality or the narcissist. Source supply tactics. All right, here's my little friend here with the pointer. First tactic for source supply that narcissists and cluster B personalities love to use: gaslight techniques. There's a lot of movies and there's a lot of information out in the form of the internet as well as books about the gaslight techniques alone. Okay, so a lot of us have either experienced or we've heard the horror stories about the gaslight techniques. Next tactic: emotional manipulation, character assassination. I've done a few videos on this one. Please check it out. Love bombing, idealizing, devaluation, discarding, recruiting flying monkeys, recruiting enablers, chronic deception, triangulation, deflecting, projecting, and ghosting. Pause. I want to say something about the ghosting. Now, the ghosting is something that the cluster B personality and or the narcissist does actually right after the discard. First is the devaluation, then it's usually the discard, and then there's the ghosting. I did a video a few months ago about how the cluster B personality and the narcissist, they would use what I call the 1-2 punch, and that is they will hover over your life or linger in your life. In other words, their presence is still felt, yet the physical aspect of the relationship is over, or you have gone no contact. Yet there's a lingering of their presence. There's a hovering over your life that the cluster B personality and the narcissist likes to use for source supply. In other words, a source supply tactic. How does the hovering work? Well, again, it's lingering. You can still feel their presence. It's like they're in your life, yet you haven't seen them in eons. You haven't seen or heard from this person in quite some time. You haven't had an active relationship with him or her, yet it is as if they are still a part of your life. This is what I call the hovering phase before they hoover you back in. Again, I call it the 1-2 punch. Please check out that video. Actually, it's in the resource section. I provided the link to that video, and it is when the cluster B personality and or the narcissist, after they have ghosted, they will hover and they will then hoover you back in. How do they do it? They use enablers and they use flying monkeys to do so. Well, the flying monkeys, they mention the person all the time. They mention the cluster B personality in conversation. They ask you, what is going on between you two? Why aren't you speaking to him or her anymore? Or they ask about you all the time, and so on and so forth. A lot of us have experienced this. So that is the hovering stage. You don't have an active relationship with him or her, yet their presence is still felt via flying monkeys and enablers that have been recruited by the cluster B personality and the narcissist. Flying monkeys and enablers, with their help, you will be sucked back in or hoovered to supply the cluster B personality and the narcissist again. So again, I call that the 1-2 punch, and it happens immediately, usually after the ghosting phase. Right? So here are the source supply tactics, and all of these tactics encourages codependent behavior. Let's move on. First tool, take steps to learn effective healing and coping tools that encourage you to discontinue to give place to those who have demonstrated that he or she is not trustworthy. Second tool, remember that your overall health is compromised while investing emotionally in an unhealthy relationship with those who are either narcissists or those with a cluster B personality. Try to become patient with yourself as you work your support base. Third tool, there is no such thing as changing others. Learning what the lessons are from experiences and moving on is probably best. Shift your gears and focus upon what you need in order to thrive forward past the experience of unhealthy relationships and the aftermath of those particular circumstances. Pause. The first tool, take steps to learn effective healing and coping tools that encourage you to discontinue to give place to those who have demonstrated that he or she is not trustworthy. Now, trust is a huge part of a healthy relationship or any type of relationship you may have. However, because the cluster B personality and the narcissist, they don't do healthy relationships, it's a safe bet to say that trust is not going to be a part of that relationship. Even if it's a family member, trust is probably going to be lacking. So when we take the time out to learn effective healing and coping tools, because see, healing and coping are two different things. So when we're healing, we're actually making some real progress and thriving forward. But if we're just coping, then pardon my French, we're pretty much just messing around. Okay, we're not really committed. Okay, we're really not committed to ourselves, and in our healing, we're not committed to healing. We're not committed to working the support base. We haven't even invested in a support base more than likely when we're coping, because see, coping doesn't necessarily mean that we are constructively coping with the fact that we were involved with a cluster B personality or a narcissist. Okay, this doesn't mean that, because coping mechanisms can be destructive, such as being an individual who self-medicates. Not judging here. I have no room to judge. So when a person chooses to learn some effective healing and coping tools, then yes, they can be healing, yet they can be coping constructively instead of destructively. So by healing, this more than likely means the person is committed to their making progress to thriving forward. More than likely, they have a support base in place and they're working their support base, being patient with themselves, because healing is not a contest. Let's just see who can heal the fastest. No, this is your life here. You've already gone through an ordeal if you were involved with a cluster B personality or a narcissist. You have already gone through quite an ordeal. Next tool, remember that your overall health is compromised. Okay, so yes, it is. Whenever we are in an unhealthy relationship, our overall health is compromised. Some of us end up with migraine headaches when we don't have a history of having headaches or migraine headaches. All of a sudden, we have headaches. We're dealing with other health issues such as insomnia, not being able to sleep well, all types of things, physical pain in the body, because the body remembers trauma. Believe it or not, the body has a memory of its own. So even though we do everything to try to forget, the body never forgets. So try to be patient with yourself as you work your support base. This is going to be very key, because more than likely your support base will be designed to help you to learn the effective tools, okay, in order to thrive forward and to begin your healing. Last tool, there is no such thing as changing others. I know some of us probably do wish we could change the narcissist or the cluster personality. We get tired of these shenanigans. We get tired of, the drama and the chaos. I can remember a couple of times in my life where I had relationships, unhealthy relationships with a cluster personality. Yes, and I got tired of the drama. There were times that I just was like, emotionally stressed. But there is no such thing as changing others. So learning what the lessons are from experiences and then moving on is what's best. I found it personally to be a game changer. So shift your gears and focus upon what you need. Okay, so, I know there have been plenty of times that I had to do that, to shift my gears and focus on what my priorities were when I was working my support base. I continue to work my support base today, but I'm going back to when I first started. I learned how to shift the gears and focused upon what I needed and focus upon certain priorities I had in order to thrive forward and to begin healing. Because the narcissist and the cluster personality, they're not going to do it. They're not going to provide you that validation or support. So yeah, we just have to, we have to look out after ourselves. And I want to encourage you today, especially my stars, to continue to thrive forward by self-preservation, practicing self-preservation. Okay, and so after you start to shift your gears, you become a little bit better at it. Once you get started, you become accustomed to it. You're practicing self-preservation. You're starting to gain some momentum in working your support base. And more than likely, you will begin to elevate your self-esteem and increase your self-confidence. Thriving forward, your life will begin to look and feel better to you. Okay, and I'm just speaking from experience. It's not going to be easy, especially when you're first beginning to work your support base. But I want to again encourage, especially my stars, to get started today or tonight. Self-preservation, okay, is a game changer. All right, so nothing ever goes away until it teaches us what we need to know. All right. Let's move forward. Signs of adverse effects of unhealthy relationships with a cluster B personality: anxiety, depression, mismanagement of anger, flashbacks of traumatic events, chronic pain of the body, obsessive fantasies of either revenge or reunion with the cluster B personality or the person that has a narcissistic personality. Next, attempts to convince yourself that you love the cluster B personality. And again, we're going to include those who have a narcissistic personality. Guilt, shame, feelings of nostalgia, strong sense of obligation, double-mindedness, denial or cognitive dissonance, self-mutilation, suicidal tendencies, becoming responsible for the choices of others. Pause. I'm not going to go over all of these, but I want to go over that last one. Choosing to become responsible for the choices of others. This is a big one, I think, for a lot of those who have been groomed to behave codependently. When it comes to the cluster B personality and the narcissist, one of the things that they like to do is to have the source supply become responsible, emotionally that is, for him or her. So when the source supply chooses to become responsible in any way, shape, or form for the choices that the narcissist or the cluster personality has made, then yes, the false self-image reigns. Okay? They reign, they win. Whereas the source supply, more than likely, will not win. It's not a win-win here. So when a person chooses to become responsible for the choices of the cluster B personality or a narcissist, yeah, it's kind of a self-defeating thing to do. Because the cluster B personality and the narcissist, they rarely like to take any responsibility for their choices, yet alone their actions. Okay. I want to also point out suicidal tendencies. Now, this is one that often increases, especially during the season of winter. Why is that? Because in the winter, this is when we have most of our family-oriented holidays, such as Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's. These three particular holidays absolutely encourages people around the planet who practice these three holidays, right? They celebrate families, they celebrate relationships. So there's a huge encouragement or influence to come together. But if you have a background in dysfunctional families, whereas there's a cluster B personality or narcissistic personality, right? It's not going to really be a big coming together. If anything, it's going to be a lot of tactics being practiced or used by the cluster B personality and the narcissist for source supply. So they will use those three holidays to scout for source supply. So suicidal tendencies will be on the rise because some individuals are either low contact or no contact. So if they are low contact, it is my opinion that the suicidal tendencies among that group may be a real issue because they are still in contact. Even though it's a low contact, they're still in contact with the cluster B personality or the narcissist. So this gives the narcissist or the cluster B personality absolute free reign to try to gain source supply from others. So the suicidal tendencies tend to increase, especially during the family-oriented holidays, whereas some of the family members have a cluster B personality or narcissistic personality disorder. I also want to go ahead and point out mismanagement of anger. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is because a lot of people, not everyone, a lot of people have this image of when a person is angry, he or she is negative. Not necessarily so. A lot of people are afraid of their own anger or becoming angry, or there's a stipulation, there's a stigma concerning angry or anger. Okay, so anger is something I say serves a purpose. As long as it is something that is utilized constructively or expressed constructively, that's not easy to do. It's easier said than done. However, when a person is mismanaging his or her anger, this can end up being a self-sabotaging thing or self-defeating thing. And the narcissist and the cluster personality, believe it or not, they can absolutely gain source supply from people who mismanage their anger, because energy is another way to look at emotions. Emotions are energy in motion. So when a person is mismanaging his or her anger because of something that the cluster B personality or the narcissist has said or done in order to gain source supply, well then they're going to end up gaining source supply, because more than likely that individual who mismanages his or her anger, they are prone to being reactionary. Anger is something that has a stigma of being negative, when actually it can be expressed constructively. There's a lot of information out there about constructively expressing anger, and it can be used to your benefit instead of being used against you. Okay, so that's another one I wanted to point out. And the last one I will point out is obsessive fantasies of either revenge or reunion with the cluster B personality. I think that's another highlightable, sign of an adverse effect that usually happens after an unhealthy relationship. After a person goes no contact, it is not unusual that a person will begin to obsess or have fantasies about the cluster B personality or the narcissist, because the cluster B personality and the narcissist, they don't do healthy relationships. Personal boundaries are broken down early in the relationship, meaning that more than likely the relationship will be, or it will feel undone by the time the relationship is over, physically that is. However, the relationship will feel far from over. It will feel as if there's some unfinished business. So this is why I say obsessive fantasies of either revenge or reunion with the cluster B personality or narcissist is quite common. The cluster B personality and the narcissist, they don't like to resolve issues. This is also what makes the relationship very unhealthy. So by the time the physical aspect of the relationship is over, yes, more than likely the person who is not the narcissist or the cluster B personality, they're going to feel like there were things that were left unsaid and undone and unresolved. So they may have thoughts, repeated thoughts, or obsessive fantasies of either revenge or a reunion with the cluster B personality or the narcissist. Okay, let's move on. Critical questions. First question, how do you usually resolve issues? What's the process? Second question, is it possible that you experience major insecurities in your ability to thrive forward due to certain complexes? Third and final question, how tough would you say it would be to start something new without the narcissist or the cluster B personality? Pause. First question, how do you usually resolve issues? What's the process? This is one that I started years ago. I would go over in my mind from step 1 to whatever, like step 5. The process. What do I do in order to resolve issues? Okay, so I will go to step 1. Well, what happens, or what do I feel? I know this might sound overwhelming, and it may even sound like a lot to some of you watching, but bear with me. So when you start thinking about the process, how do you usually resolve issues? Number 1, what's the first step in the process? Do you usually just think that the issue will go away? So that's the first step. What is the thought? Because that's part of the process. You think something or you feel something. So what is the thought? Is it that you fear that the issue will never go away, but you hope that it does? Okay, so that's the first step. That's what happens. Second step to the process, for instance, could be you feel something. What is it? Maybe you feel sadness. Maybe you feel anger. Okay, so that can be the second step to the process. Third step, and again, this is the example to the process of resolving issues. Third step could be that you avoid the person and or issue altogether, hoping it will go away. So voila, that's your process. How do you usually resolve issues? Reason why I pointed that out is because one of the things that I had an epiphany about is how I resolved issues and why some of the issues ended up worse. Okay, because I didn't resolve the issue. Because of the methods that I was using were quite passive to resolve the issues, such as avoidance, hoping it will just go away. That was one of the processes. That was one of the steps, that I used for the process. So this is why I'm pointing that out. How do you usually resolve issues? Because more than likely, the methods that you are using or the steps that you are using, that's the process, in order to resolve the issue is quite passive. Therefore, the issue will remain unresolved. Second question, is it possible that you experience major insecurities in your ability to thrive forward due to certain complexes? Okay, complexes. Do you have certain complexes about yourself that is a insecurity or a major insecurity? So therefore, you doubt that you can thrive forward. You doubt your abilities. What are those complexes? For instance, maybe you have a complex about being too tall, being too thin. Your hair is too long, or your hair is too short. Maybe you have a complex about your appearance, your body type. So these are our complexes, which can absolutely reflect our insecurities and therefore can affect whether or not we believe in ourselves or our abilities. So is it possible that you experience major insecurities in your ability to thrive forward due to certain complexes? And I also want to point out something about the complexes. The cluster B personality and the narcissist, they absolutely love to point out your complexes for source supply. So their false self-image will reign at the end of the day. Because if you feel terrible about yourself, guess what? Their false self-image is thriving. They feel better. The cluster B personality and the narcissist, they are usually notorious for turning other people down so they can feel better. Maybe you don't think you are a pleasant person. Maybe you don't think you're funny enough to hold a conversation. You don't think you're a great conversationalist. It can be anything. Any major insecurities you have about yourself usually are directly linked to your complexes. And this can prove to be a blockage to your ability to thrive forward. Okay, so the cluster B personality and the narcissist, again, they can be an indirect influence on this, and you continuing to focus on your insecurities, that is. All right. Third question, how tough would you say it would be to start something new without the narcissist or the cluster B personality? Well, after having a relationship, an unhealthy relationship with the cluster B personality or a narcissist, a lot of us are not feeling very confident about our abilities to do anything, really, in life, whatever that may be, because our confidence has taken a hit, as well as our self-esteem. So how tough would you say it would be to start anything without the narcissist or the cluster B personality? And it absolutely correlates with this second question. Because a person who is not feeling very good about themselves, such as having insecurities in their abilities to do anything, whether it's thriving forward or not, to their own complexities, to their own complexes, whatever their complexes are. They can have a complex again about their physical appearance, their personality, whatever it may be. More than likely, he or she would not be very confident or feel very confident about starting anything in this life without the narcissist, the cluster personality, because he or she may look to the cluster personality or the narcissist for approval and validation. Okay, let's move forward. These are the references and the resources. Now, I've also included a couple of links here of my videos that are very related to this subject. Okay, so this is where I talk about the hover and then they hoover. So narcissists hover and then they hoover. This is the link here. This particular video here is age restricted, so please keep that in mind. All right, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching, and wherever you may be, I wish you the very best. I'm Luminousz Star, and stay tuned for more videos.